welcome to CinemaSpection. I'm Tim.
I'm Agatha.
For this episode, we've gotten our hands on a cosmic map leading to a surprise fantasy hit of the early 1980s, and the first film in Terry Gilliam's unofficial trilogy of the imagination. Expect fabulous riches, scary mythology, and nipples for men as we plan a heist with the Time Bandits from 1981.
So prepare yourself for a different kind of movie. A movie that takes you on a journey through time.
Ask me.
Will you? Travel aboard the SS Titanic. Shake hands with Napoleon. Become a personal friend to Robin Hood. You will join us at a real Roman orgy. You'll say hello to ancient Greece and marvel at the size of a young warrior's horn. You will spend an evening with the biggest Homo sapien of all time.
Did you hear something, dear?
No, I don't think so.
Finally, a movie that takes you inside the fabulous world of darkness. Recognize this fellow? Well, you will when he tries to destroy all good in the universe.
Oh, no! I'm a reasonable man.
Former Beatle George Harrison brings together John Cleese, Sean Connery, Shelley Duvall, Katherine Hellman, Michael Palin, David Warner, in a journey more ridiculous than history.
Thank you very much. Very, 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 very much.
Time Bandits.
Awful people.
Young Kevin hides away from the banal materialism of his parents by burying himself in fantasies of history and mythology, only to have the fantastic barge its way into his life as 6 diminutive time travelers make a wrong turn into his bedroom closet. He gets swept up in their scheme to rob some of the most famous figures in history using a galactic map charting the various holes in time. But the band of time-trotting raiders are pursued by Evil Incarnate, who plots to gain hold of the map and use it to reshape all of creation to his own liking. As usual, we'll be discussing Time Bandits in detail, so if you haven't seen the movie and wish to remain unspoiled, we recommend watching the film before listening to the rest of this episode. Time Bandits was released by Handmade Films on July 10th, 1981 in the United Kingdom, and November 6th, 1981 in the US. It was shot on a budget of $5 million and made $42.4 million in the box office in North America, so a very strong surprise hit in the 80s. Okay, Agatha, what are your first experiences or your history with Time Bandits?
It's another one of those movies that I saw when I was very young, so I don't really remember a time when it didn't exist for me. I know we had it on a VHS, probably cross-taped from HBO. Thank you, HBO, for sponsoring my childhood. And it was around the same time that I also saw like Biggles' Adventures in Time and probably also Ice Pirates, because that's how my family rolled. But I just remember really liking it, and it was fun, but it wasn't one of the ones that caught me the way that, say, Star Wars did. So Star Wars I would watch over and over, and I did watch Baron Munchausen more frequently than I saw Time Bandits. I think I appreciate Time Bandits much more now that I'm an adult.
Funny, you might be one of the only people who saw Baron Munchausen more than Time Bandits, because barely anybody saw Baron Munchausen when it came out.
I know.
I also remember it from HBO, back when we'd get HBO kind of bootleg, only half coming in, so it's half staticky.
When you flip back and forth, and sometimes you'll manage to scramble the TV enough to get HBO for free.
Yet flicking on Channel 4, hold something the right way, and it would come in kind of staticky, but visible. And that's how I remember a lot of movies from my youth. In fact, when I started seeing them not staticky, they seemed wrong somehow. But I think this is one of those ones where I came in halfway through because the second half of the movie, from like the King Agamemnon sequence on, is burned into my brain more than the first half. But I do remember, as a kid, absolutely being terrified by the Godhead in the first scene that chases them down the corridor. That freaked me out as a kid. But it is one of those ones where I found it both really scary and a lot of fun and really loved it. And it was the movie that pulled me into Terry Gilliam's filmography. And I've grown to love all of his films. Yes, unfortunately, in the past few years, Gilliam has said and done some problematic things that always make me just wince a little bit.
It's worth mentioning, because I know we try not to focus on movies whose creators or sometimes actors are highly controversial, just because we don't want to get into that, and also because we really don't want to promote that work at the moment, probably ever. But yeah, I appreciate that they're fully formed human beings with their own opinions, but I just wish they'd keep them to themselves so I can enjoy their work. Just please stop.
I know. Especially Gilliam, for me, being like one of my directing heroes. I've always loved his style. I love his sense of humor, and it's really on full display in this movie. The imagination of it, the way the plot just spirals into these bizarre tangents that you wouldn't imagine. Anybody would normally put this movie together going from A to B to C. This movie just kind of goes A, Z, R, Q. Good enough. And it works.
It's like Exquisite Corpse in movie form.
I remember somebody accused Gilliam, I think it was on Brazil, of just writing down all of the weird dreams and fantasies he had and just throwing them into a random order and making a movie out of that.
Which I think is wonderful. When I wrote short fiction, way back in the early days, when I wrote short fiction, it was very similar, where not really stream of consciousness, but a magical realism of a sort, where events would follow events that made sense within the characters, but outside of that, it didn't really work.
Where some screenwriters are like painstaking and, this must lead to this and this consequence must lead to this. You can imagine Gilliam being like, you know what? Napoleon, that'd be funny. Let's figure out how we get there. And kind of figuring out all the connective dots later.
Right.
So this movie was born out of Gilliam's frustration with being unable to get Brazil off the ground. Now, at this point, he had already directed his first solo film, Jabberwocky, which I still have yet to see. It's one of the only Gilliam ones I haven't seen, that and Tideland. So anyway, since Brazil wasn't working, he decided he'd make a children's film that, for him, would play against the type of most of the kids' movies out that period. He said he wanted to make a movie that was intelligent enough for kids, but exciting enough for adults. To that effect, he decided to make the main character a child who would fall in with a group of thieves, but he had a little trouble picturing if you had a kid and a bunch of adults in a movie, if the kid would really work as a main character or just get overwhelmed. So then he came up with the idea of, I'll cast a kid with a bunch of little people who are all his size. And that way he'd kind of be able to hold his own with them.
Right.
And that pretty much gave rise to the Time Bandits as we know them. He brought in Michael Palin to help write the script. Apparently, Gilliam focused on the overall plot and the themes, and Palin was the one who kind of developed the characters and the dialogue and then suggested the historical periods for the characters to visit. And the whole production was produced by Handmade Films. It was this company formed by George Harrison and his partner Dennis O'Brien that came to the rescue when Life of Brian was being made and financing pulled out. So they put together this little company to finance that one. This was the first movie fully produced by the company, and it was one of their most successful. And it forms the first in what Gilliam has come to call his trilogy of imagination, which is this, Brazil, and Baron Munchausen. Although, at this point, I think
would argue Parnassus is in there if you want to open it up to 4 movies.
I'd say Man Who Killed Don Quixote
that
fits
one
in
as well.
And Fisher King, even. That's the thing. There's a lot of movies that could kind of slide into this.
Yeah, but he has a very distinct style. And can you think of a movie he didn't exhibit Gilliamism?
Even the ones that he didn't write, the visual style is certainly
exactly
there. Like 12 Monkeys, for example, he didn't write the screenplay, but the look of that movie is all Gilliam. And even there, the idea of somebody who might be kind of fleeing reality for a fantasy is layered throughout that script. In particular, though, these 3 movies all feature main characters who are caught between this dark, banal reality and their dreams and fantasies that they'd much rather pursue. And it's interesting how they kind of go in a sequence where it starts with a little kid in this one, an adult for Brazil, and then an old man in Baron Munchausen. They kind of go in chronological age almost. And where they go kind of goes into these bizarre dark endings. This one has something of a dark ending, I guess you could argue. Brazil definitely does. And then by the time you get to Munchausen, you finally get a happy ending.
Right.
And as we'll see, a lot of the crew and especially a lot of the actors carry over from film to film. In particular, a lot of actors from this will appear in Brazil, his next film. Building off of that, this movie sets up the question, is what we're seeing real or a dream of Kevin's? I noticed there's a clear moment when he goes to bed the first time, just before the night jumps out, and especially before the bandits show up, where you could say, oh, that's where Kevin falls asleep.
Right.
And the rest of what follows is kind of a dream.
Honestly, I think it's a movie where I'm very comfortable holding the 2 possibilities in my mind at the same time. Much like Labyrinth, which is my recommendation, spoiler alert, for this movie. Kevin's room is filled with the images of the characters and the events that we'll encounter through the rest of the film. So we definitely see Napoleon and Grecian soldiers and castles. We see a tank. We definitely see an astronaut, which we get toward the end of the film.
I noticed this time, for the first time, that there's a picture of a pig on the back wall right behind the bed, which is what I'll go come into. Yeah. I also love how Evil's big fortress seems to be composed of like Lego blocks, and there's a chessboard on one side. So again, integrated.
Which I do believe the chessboard and Legos show up in his room.
Yeah, in the last shot where the firefighters are pulling him out, you see the chessboard laid out and the tank and the cowboys and the Roman soldiers all set up like the battle we see at the end.
So it really is set up that all of these items and all of these images are in his mind because they're in his environment. So going to sleep, that would naturally crop up here and there. Plus, the idea that his parents seem to be obsessed with modernity and getting into the future and keeping up with the Joneses, it makes sense to me that the child mind would create the great evil in the form of something technologically obsessed.
And then there's the final scene, which, okay, could be part of him still dreaming, but also seems to be kind of the hint to the audience that maybe this really did happen and that the Supreme Being has kind of slid him back where he was originally, because he's in the same clothes that he went to sleep in, which most of which got lost. Like, he lost the robe, he lost his normal outfit over the course of the film. He still has all of the gear that he was kind of going to sleep with to try and capture this event. So the Supreme Being is trying to restore him back to his normal life as best he can, which, of course, goes horribly, horribly wrong.
I'm uncertain how to take the ending. I thought that the photographs were proof enough that it was something that had actually occurred for him. He'd gone on all of these adventures. He has proof. But the idea that the charred chunk of the great evil would destroy his parents makes me question whether or not he's still sleeping. And of course, you know, Agamemnon shows up as a firefighter. So there's kind of that dream logic showing up that I'm not certain if he is awake yet or if he was ever asleep. Like I said, I like to hold both of those in my mind at the same time. I like those possibilities.
I kind of like leaning toward the fact that it is real and his parents just got blown up, just because that really amuses me.
The thing is, it's so grim. It is so grim. This is probably the only human on Earth who has the most empirical information on good and evil and time. And he is a child whose house has caught on fire and is probably demolished and whose parents have just blown up. What does he do now? He has this vast, scary knowledge and no anchor for his reality as a human being.
How I choose to take that is, after all the stuff he's been through, he's really been the smartest member of the little group that's traveling through time, and he's managed to keep himself alive and keep his head above water. I think this ending is supposed to imply that he's fine without his parents. He's gone through enough that he can probably make it through normal life now and be okay.
Possibly, but one step further, he still has the photo of the map, which means
that's a good point.
He very possibly could go find another door.
I wonder what he'd do, where he would go if he had the choice.
He'd probably try to go back to Greece. He wants to be Agamemnon's son.
Well, there's a question. If that was actually Agamemnon, maybe he fell through a hole into modern times looking for him.
Maybe.
The film seems to have little pokes at other fantasy stories. The fact that the bandits come out of a wardrobe, that's Narnia right there. It's kind of Narnia in reverse.
Yeah.
And of course, the Godhead is the Wizard of Oz, basically, especially the reveal that this terrible deity is this old man in a suit who's just kind of grumpy.
Exactly.
You've got the little people, the dwarves, it's kind of like Snow White. In fact, there was a seventh dwarf originally, Horseflesh, that they keep mentioning, who's not in the film. I'm not sure if it's a joke or serious that Gilliam decided to cut him to make sure it wasn't 7 because he didn't want any kind of copyright problems. But I can't tell if he's serious or not, as usual with Gilliam.
Well, I was thinking about that, and the idea that there are 6 of the bandits, and then they take Kevin with him. Kevin becomes the 7th.
Yeah, actually, that would make sense, because otherwise he'd be Snow White.
Right. But I look for stupid connections. So the very first thing I looked for was how many bandits, and the fact that there are 7 letters in the word bandits with the plural. I was like, yes, there are 7 of them. Make it fit. Force these little jigsaw puzzle pieces into shape.
When the titles happen and the letters for time bands disappear into holes, and they're like time holes, I was trying to count, is that how many time holes they go through in the movie? Is there that much time travel? I was trying to make that work.
I wish you'd mentioned it, because I would have tried to find it as well.
I'm pretty sure not. But
well, there are 11 letters in Time Bandits. I can't think of how many doors there were off the top of my head. I'd have to sit down and count.
If we're counting all of them going back in time for the finale and bringing all this stuff back to fight evil, it might work. I don't know. One big quality of Gilliam's movies, and it's all over the place here, is irreverence. This idea that social institutions, and particularly religion, is not taken very seriously. And I love how here Gilliam is making fun of the concept of God and creationism and the creation of the universe, that God is basically this out-of-touch employer and the universe is this really horribly flawed product that doesn't quite work, and that these repairmen are running around supposedly trying to fix stuff and instead are just taking advantage of these flaws.
There's also the idea that the Supreme Being has set it up so that the Time Bandits would steal the map and try to expose flaws. They're quality control.
And to test out his creation, Evil, who is scary at points but also very ridiculous.
Right.
And most time travel movies, it's the genius of some inventor who creates this device that allows it, and the fact that, no, here it's just a mistake. There's a hole. There's a little flaw here that lets you just pass through. And down to even the historical figures, that you have these hallowed names of history, Napoleon, Robin Hood, Agamemnon, and most of them are presented as, at the very least, flawed, most of the time, horrible goofballs.
Well, that's, I think, due to the writing of Palin.
I like this idea that everybody in the universe is just kind of flawed and ridiculous, as much as anybody you'd meet on the street.
Oh, absolutely.
And of course, one of the biggest themes, and this is very Gilliam, is that the big evil of the world is materialism.
I would say every film I can think of his, off the top of my head, has advanced technology and materialism as the big evil. Even though there might be a person or a thing as a stand-in, it's always about amassing items or wealth and a greater technology, up to even Zero Theorem.
Oh, absolutely. There's this fear of gadgets, and not just that they're unreliable and will break down, but the social implications of them. This drive that everybody wants to acquire them and everybody wants to have them, even though a lot of characters don't even seem to understand them or understand what they could be used for. The parents who are just sitting here wanting all this stuff for their kitchen just because it'll make it a little bit faster, that they'll be able to have their meal in like 2 seconds less than they could right now, and because the neighbors have it.
It's just being angry that the neighbors can have a meal in 8 seconds, and blending their son's food just because they have a blender, I'm certain. But also the TV show they were watching, what was it called?
Your Money or Your Life.
Yes,
Yeah.
Your Money or Your Life, and how ridiculous that was. Reminded me a lot of the games in The Running Man.
I was thinking that climbing for dollars and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
There are some really interesting details in all the scenes in Kevin's home at the beginning. I love that some of those scenes are filmed in a flat, boring way as compared to the rest of the movie. That dinner scene right before Kevin goes to bed and actually encounters the bandits, where it's all shot from one direction on the kitchen counter, and you get the sense they're lined up that way eating dinner, so they still have a view of the TV.
Exactly. They're sitting next to each other at a table or a counter, and the viewers are across from them. So in a way, we're sort of the TV.
And they're framed by their gadgets in the background that are hanging out in the kitchen. And the first shot, which is this wide shot, again, from right over where the TV is, and they're looking at us. And Kevin is in the background at that counter looking at his book.
Facing away from the TV, notably.
And the detail that their furniture is still covered in plastic.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Apparently it showed up that way on the set, and Gilliam had the idea of, no, leave the plastic on there. That's perfect.
They're definitely the kind of family that would want to make sure the plastic was there until there was company. Then the plastic comes off so that they have beautiful, clean factory couches and chairs. But the second they leave, the plastic goes right back on.
And drawing on the parallel you mentioned, when we get to Evil and his minions, all their stuff is covered in plastic
right.
too, including the minions.
Themselves. Yeah. Right.
And that point, the idea that Evil is obsessed with technology and creating this world focused on it, but he doesn't even seem to get it. He needs to have computers explain to him. He wants to understand them, and he's going to use them, but he doesn't really know what they're for or why. Just that it'll be a better world if it's created with a focus on technology.
All he knows is that somebody said computers are good. And much like the parents who want what they're told will be faster and they don't know how it works, but they think it'll be better, Evil blindly stumbles to the next hot new thing, in this case being computers.
This materialism kind of extends to the bandits themselves. I mean, they're motivated by greed, and the very thing that Evil uses to lure them is the greatest object in the world. He won't tell them what it is, but everybody wants it, so you want it too.
Exactly. This is the hot new thing. Like, this sneaker will change your life. It's revolutionary and it costs $1,000. People will buy it.
And I love the implication that the bandits, when they get to the fortress and see that it's this Moderna technological kitchen set, they're like, okay, yes, we want that.
By the way, I had so much difficulty with the great manufacturer in this universe is Moderna. And given that Moderna is one of the vaccines for COVID-19, it was weird to hear that word, Moderna. And I know it's supposed to be modern, but I just kept thinking vaccine.
You're just saying that because we're a Pfizer family.
No, it's really because I can't stop thinking about the vaccines and COVID, and I'd like to crawl out of my house soon, please.
We're getting there. We're getting there. Another theme of the movie is the perils of hero worship, that Kevin idolizes these figures from history he's never met, but he's read about and read all the legends of, and he gets to meet each one, and they are disappointing.
In different ways, some of them are disappointing, and some of them seem to live up beyond his expectations. He really found the father he'd always wanted in Agamemnon. Robin Hood, not very bright.
He's an upper-class idiot.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, Napoleon, just obsessed with his height. All he wants is little people smacking each other around.
That's why I think that ending works, because Kevin basically proves that he doesn't need these heroes, and his parents are even less impressive.
Right.
So he doesn't really need them. Oh, something else I meant to mention about the parents. Did you notice that they're always in pink and blue?
Yes, it was so annoying. They're basically just gender-coded colors.
There's almost nothing there. They're kind of like empty suits, basically.
They're definitely just, hey, this is a mother, this is a father. There you go.
And the one time that we see Kevin try to express his interest in history and get them interested, they're just like, time to go to bed. Mm-hmm. Nothing. So let's talk about Craig Warnock as Kevin. He's kind of an everyman character, but I feel like he represents sort of an ideal for Gilliam, in that he's a reader, he's more intellectual, he's not interested in the gadgets and material things. You get the sense this is either the kid Gilliam was or the kind of kid he likes, and the kind of kid he doesn't see in movies. Or the kind of kid he
still is inside.
That would make sense too,
right.
Yeah. And despite being young and kind of inexperienced, he seems a little better equipped to deal with time travel than the bandits. He doesn't need to be told where he is whenever they show up at one of these places. He kind of figures it out on his own. He kind of knows how to operate around these areas pretty well, it seems like, for the most part, or at least how not to make an idiot of himself the way they do.
The story sets it up so that he would be successful in time travel because he does read history, and that's something he's interested in. In his room, he even has dinosaur models. So the movie conceivably could have gone to Jurassic times.
And when I was a kid, that was the one thing I really wanted, is to see these guys up against dinosaurs. He's also kind of the conscience of the bandits in the way. I mean, I love that his real problem with Randall is that they have this map and he wants to be more like Doctor Who. He just wants to tool around time and see stuff and check it out and learn, and hates the fact that all they want to use it for is to get rich.
Which is just what their parents are doing in a way, not getting rich, but acquiring.
And when it comes to Evil getting the map, he's the one who says, oh no, we can't let this happen. We actually have to get this map back before he destroys the universe. And it's kind of the one point where the bandits are really united finally, when he pulls them all in for this big rescue mission.
Rescuing the map, and thereby rescuing the universe, yes. Or at least as far as he knows. I also like that when the knight jumps out of his wardrobe, this first weird inciting incident, his first thought is, I gotta figure out what this is. He's ready for an adventure right off the bat. He seems like a kid starving for stimulation, and I would argue that a knight jumping out of your wardrobe is kind of the ultimate kid dream. You're so open to the idea of other worlds, and your imagination is just so full as a child that it's the perfect time for an adventure like this.
As for Warnock himself, this is the only film appearance he's ever made. He was on one TV production after this, and then he dropped out of acting and became a keyboardist for several bands, although since then he's done a voice for an animated cartoon as well. But he didn't even actually try out for the part on purpose in a way. His brother went to the audition, and Warnock went with him to keep him company. And when Gilliam met them, he noticed that Craig was quiet and kind of kept to himself and more introverted, and he immediately went, oh, that's the kid I want.
That must have made for some awkward family dinners.
I was thinking that, yeah, that must have been a little weird. Gilliam kind of had this thing about kids' movies and these actors who are trying to be precious and precocious and, oh, aren't I cute? And I like that Warnock really isn't trying to do that he does feel like kind of this average kid who's just tossed into this adventure.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wish he had gone on to more movies because he's pretty good.
I do think there's a little bit of Arthur Dent in Kevin. I'm just thinking his robe outfit, the idea that he's been swept away into this adventure from his normal world and making the best of the situation. Plus, the overall tone of Time Bandits is similar to Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
See, now you're anticipating my recommendation later.
Oh, really? I'm sorry.
As for the Bandits themselves, a couple things that are interesting about them, and we'll get into them individually after this, but there's a British cultural historian, Robert Hewison, who holds that the Bandits are meant to be a subtle parody of the members of Monty Python. He suggests that Randall is kind of standing in for John Cleese, the sort of self-appointed leader. Fidget is Michael Palin, the nice one. Strutter is Eric Idle, kind of the acerbic one, which I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but okay. Og is Graham Chapman, the quiet one. Wally is standing in for Terry Jones, the rebel, and Vermin, the really gross and disgusting one, is Terry Gilliam himself.
Of course. But what about Horseflesh? Who did they kill off?
Maybe Horseflesh is like the guy at the BBC who started the show. I do think it's interesting that we see the Bandits pull off two really successful robberies, and they both involve performing in front of the people that they're about to rob, doing some kind of musical number or something.
It's kind of loaded because it could be an accident, or it could be a very pointed statement about how little people are viewed in the entertainment industry, where they must perform and juggle and act the fool to fit in the world of the stage.
It also might be a factor that a lot of these particular actors were in like song and dance groups and things, so maybe it was kind of writing the script to play their strengths to some degree.
Possibly.
I will say, it's neat to have a fantasy movie from the 80s starring little people in it where they're not dressed as monsters or creatures, they're not in heavy makeup, they're allowed to just act and play characters, which was kind of rare around then. Most of the time you see these type of actors, and a lot of these particular actors, they were Jawas or Ewoks or in some kind of creature suit.
We do get a return to this in Willow, however.
That's true. And a lot of these actors show up in Willow as well.
I know.
So let's talk about Randall, played by David Rappaport, the self-appointed and self-important leader of the Bandits, the one with the big vision. And we can imagine he's the guy who convinced everybody to abandon their jobs in maintenance and go on this crazy adventure.
He has a big vision, but on top of that, the reason he wanted to go on this adventure is because he felt unappreciated in his job. He's an underling for a supreme being who just doesn't care how hard they work.
I almost feel like he has a little bit of what Napoleon has, too, this complex, less for his physical height and more that he is this lowly worker and he wants to prove he can do something big, so he's going to pull off first these robberies, so he's rich, but then when it comes to this most fabulous object, like he says, we risk all, we win everything. He wants to blaze his name across history as this amazing thief.
Right.
According to Gilliam, Rappaport allegedly had quite an ego himself. He would demand more close-ups, and he wouldn't associate with the other actors because he didn't feel like he was hired because he was a little person. He felt he was hired on pure talent alone. And here's the thing, I gotta say, I think Rappaport's amazing in this role.
I think he's wonderful. I do think it would be a disservice to say he was hired specifically because he's a little person, because if that's the case, he could have been any one of those characters. They're actors. And you pick the right actor for the role.
If you watch him in any scene, he always knows where the camera is. He's always got some great little bit of business going on, or some expression, or some just like rolling of the eyes of just he can't believe he has to deal with these guys and lead these guys around.
He has amazing screen presence, definitely.
He really is wonderful. His scene on the Titanic where he's espousing his vision and trying to strike up this kinship with Kevin, I think is just wonderful. And while he's trying to be impressive, he's spilling his drink and accidentally hitting his cigar into Kevin's hair, and just he can't pull off the cool, slick leader thing no matter how much he tries.
But he's the fanciful representation of his parents again, and multiple times through his adventures, we run into Kevin's parents in a guise of something else that need to accumulate and be more important and have more things. Is his parents distilled.
And same time, for all of his big talk, he's incredibly cowardly. Whenever the Supreme Being shows up, he's either running away or on his knees and like, can we have our jobs back? Thanks. Supposedly, the other actors were a little bit resentful of Rappaport's attitude, and that's one of the reasons Gilliam wrote in that scene with the invisible barrier so they could finally have a chance to vent their frustrations on screen.
Oh, wow.
And I think you can really see it in Jack Purvis, who plays Wally, screaming at him that they were really angry at him at that point, and it really comes out in that moment.
Oof.
Rappaport, you may have seen him in some other things. He had a really wonderful supporting role in The Bride alongside Clancy Brown. He is the little person who's traveling with Frankenstein's monster through the countryside, and he's really sweet and wonderful in that movie. And he was actually set to appear in a Star Trek The Next Generation episode, The Most Toys, the one where Data is kidnapped by that insane collector.
I do remember that one.
And they started filming, but sadly Rappaport, who had some problems with depression, committed suicide while they were filming it, and they had to very quickly recast the part with Saul Rubinek. But I guess they filmed a lot of his scenes, and supposedly it's on the DVD, and now it's out there, so you can see them. I think it's a real shame, because I really think he was wonderful here. I think just as wonderful is Jack Purvis, who plays Wally, who's, I think, the most emotional of the group. He's really prone to joy, and he's really into being a bandit, right down to his giant pirate hat, which I think is such a wonderful bit of costuming his character. He's another actor you can see really blossoming in this movie. That scene at the invisible barrier, or especially after Fidget dies, and he has that complete freak out and is just charging at evil, not even afraid anymore, just so angry he's willing to get struck down just to get at him.
That is one of my favorite performances in the film, definitely. You could feel that rage. And sometimes I wonder with actors how they physically manage what they do, just because with Purvis, his face was turning beet red and you could see tears of rage in his eyes. How do you physically not just do that, but rebound from that and have to do it take after take? That just blows my mind.
And the way it's shot, that it suddenly goes to really awkward handheld to follow them as they're trying to hold him down. It's an amazing scene. Purvis would be part of a comedy duo with Kenny Baker, who plays Fidget, and appeared throughout the Star Wars trilogy. He was the Chief Jawa in Star Wars, and he was the Chief, I think it's pronounced Ugnaught, in Empire Strikes Back. I think because he's a little taller than the other ones, he was always kind of the chief of these groups. He would actually appear in the next two films in Gilliam's trilogy. He's Dr. Chapman, the acid man from Brazil, and Gustavus, the guy who has amazing breath, in Baron Munchausen. Sadly, Purvis was paralyzed in a car accident while he was shopping in 1990. It was kind of close to what happened to Anton Yelchin. The brakes on his car didn't really work properly, and he's hung on there for a while, but unfortunately passed away in 1997. Next we come to possibly one of the most well-known of the Bandit actors, Kenny Baker as Fidget. I think Fidget's kind of the most friendly. He's certainly the most welcoming to Kevin. When Kevin's asking questions, he's usually the guy to try to answer them.
Well, if we're going to compare them to Snow White's dwarves at all, he would be Dopey.
Yeah. Talks a bit more, but yeah. I love how he would accidentally let things slip, like that this was their first robbery.
Yes.
And the embarrassment on his face, like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Baker is best known for playing R2-D2 throughout the Star Wars series, the original 3 and the prequels. I think by Force Awakens, he was just a consultant. He didn't want to really get in this tin can anymore, and who can blame him?
Yeah, exactly. I cannot blame him at all on that. That must have been physically taxing.
He also appeared as one of the Goblin Corps in Labyrinth, and he's one of the Nelwyn Band in Willow, so he's in there as well. Supposedly at conventions, he was just like the nicest, friendliest guy, and it really comes across in this movie. That moment when he gets squashed is such a shock. It's just like, oh no.
Yeah, you don't expect in this sort of film for there to actually be a price to your party. It makes sense as an adult to see it happen because that you need to have that last emotional push. But it's still very shocking. And how it's staged looks very much like how the Witch of the East dies in The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, well, you just see the legs sticking out under the pillar.
Exactly.
Yeah. Next is Mike Edmonds as Og. Putting it bluntly, Og is the dense one. He doesn't say much. He doesn't seem to think much. It's kind of symbolized. Gilliam had them give him a Viking helmet with just one horn to kind of symbolize that not everything is there with this character. And it makes him the perfect tool to manipulate. He does a couple things relatively competently. When the ship is in trouble because it's revealed that it's the hat of this giant, he's the one who thinks to cut the sail down. And he is the one who actually gets the map back from Benson. And he picks the lock on the cage. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, he's kind of dense. I love that when he turns into a pig and he turns back, he's like, wait, I was enjoying that.
I know. I thought that was adorable.
There's Malcolm Dixon as Strutter, who he doesn't get a lot to do, but with what little he does, I feel like he kind of comes across as the most level-headed member of the group.
I love Strutter. And again, I'm just going to bring this back to a parallel in The Seven Dwarves that he's Doc.
Yeah, absolutely.
Down to the glasses. I mean, you could just sit down and do a one-to-one parallel. So I understand why they wanted to be careful about copyright infringement, because some of these characters you can drop right into the role.
I love his fashionable bowler hat. I think it's such a good look. He's kind of the quiet one. Usually when he's contributing something to a scene, he's actually asking a very smart question or pointing them in the right direction. You get the sense that he's probably the one who offers sensible advice to Randall that's immediately shot down, so that's probably why he doesn't say as much. And then there's Tiny Ross as Vermin, who's, the only way I can put it is he looks like Aqualung from the Jethro Tull album. He's kind of a cartoon. He's weird, he's gross, and prone to eating anything he can get his hands on with no real concern about propriety or manners.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with the latter until he bit the head off a rat.
Well, as he puts it, it might be the last meal we get for a while.
But why? Oh, it did bug me so much. It shouldn't have. I should have seen it coming.
But you can instantly sense that, yes, this is the kind of character that Gilliam would be attracted to. It's the kind of character Gilliam played a lot on Flying Circus, where he doesn't say much and he's just doing weird, creepy stuff in the background of a scene.
But he also seems to be the physical pleasures of eating and drinking, and he seems to be filling a kind of id role in a way.
And also, like Evil with the technology, when he gets gold, he just keeps trying to put it in his mouth and eat it. He doesn't know what it's supposed to be for.
Right. And children are like that a lot. I mean, they go through this oral phase where everything needs to be touched and tasted. And you can almost imagine Vermin hasn't gotten out of that yet.
I love how many times we just see him kind of watching things going on. Like during the stage performance, he's in the back, like eating a fake fish, just watching all these guys, like, what are they doing? Or during Napoleon's big rant about little people, he's eating a candle and again, just staring at Napoleon like he has no idea what's happening in the scene. I also love that moment in the Titanic scene when we see him asking for, 6 more plates of caviar. Anybody else want anything? It's like this one chance Vermin has to kind of live the high life.
Yeah.
Finally. And now on to my favorite performance in the movie, David Warner as the evil genius.
Oh, it's David Warner.
Here's the interesting thing. I'll jump to this first. This was not supposed to be David Warner.
Really?
It was supposed to be Jonathan Pryce. Gilliam wanted Pryce, and Pryce had another job that was going to pay more, so he decided to go with that one. And here's the thing. Now, a couple of years later, Pryce would play Mr. Dark, so we know he can play scary.
Exactly.
And we know he can play comedy. But the beauty is, Warner very rarely gets to play comedy. So to see him do it, and to see him do it so well in this movie, I absolutely adore it. It's so much fun.
It's nice to see an actor who seems to be pigeonholed get to do something fun. There are some dramatic actors that we see on SNL. I know we talk about this off and on, and they're actors you've never seen do a comedy. They are dramatic actors, but they just blow it away. It's so nice to see an actor step out of either how they've been pigeonholed or their comfort zone and succeed in a different genre.
And with Warner, he's talked about how most casting directors would just see him think he looks creepy, put him in black, and boom, he's a bad guy. And he never minded so much as long as he got to play something with a little bit more heft to it or a little fun. And here, he just has so much fun playing this character and making him look really goofy, but he's also really scary at points. And that's a real tricky tightrope to walk. And I think he does a fabulous job with it.
His hand acting is wonderful. We won't see hand acting with nails like that until Mystery Men.
I was thinking of that.
Jeffrey Rush.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. When I was a kid, he just seemed like the most intimidating thing. And then once I watched this again as an adult and realized how stupid some of the stuff he's saying is and what a blind spot he has about who he is and what he is.
I would say just about all of the characters are emotionally undeveloped, and because of that have a tendency to talk about things they don't understand or they're not quite sure what it means, but it sounds important.
Much like a kid, yeah.
Exactly, which is, again, another nod to the idea that this is all his dreamscape.
But also, if he's something that the Supreme Being has created recently, since he's still testing this thing out, he is kind of a kid in the cosmic sense. Mm-hmm. Evil is still kind of new and trying to figure things out and figure himself out. And I love that, like Randall, he's very self-important. He can't accept the idea that the Supreme Being created him. He has to manufacture this backstory that he always exists and that, yeah, I'm in this fortress because I'm lulling into a false sense of security. Yeah, it's all part of the plan. Yeah. And even when people ask good questions, he has to blow them up. Mm-hmm. I also like this idea that if he's so focused on technology, we have to wonder by the end of the movie when we see the modern world, maybe evil had a little bit more influence than we'd like. Maybe that piece of evil that escaped into Kevin's time spread everywhere and evil is kind of won in the long term. Maybe he got his wish.
Toward the end of the film, evil has a bunch of our characters on a rope spinning around like he's a carousel. Like he is taking a chance. what I found striking about this is that that exact image is used nearly a decade later, I believe, in Beetlejuice.
Yeah, you're totally right.
Right. So toward the end of Beetlejuice looks like an amusement park ride. He's spinning around, and it is pure Gilliam Time Bandits.
Right down to the Calliope music that's playing.
Right, right.
I gotta say, that whole confrontation with him taking on all these different warriors from different time frames is fascinating. It felt like at one point that he was going to use technology each time to defeat them, and I wish that had been the case. Like with the cowboys, he becomes this weird kind of wind-up machine with a blade that cuts them off. When it comes to the knights, he goes to use gas, which is a sort of a form of technology, and technology used for horrible, horrible things. The only one that doesn't quite work is the pincushion one that he kills the Roman soldiers with.
Yeah, the pincushion. I was trying to figure out if we had seen a pincushion in Kevin's reality, and I could not think of a time we would have. It just feels like such a specific item.
It does. I don't think there was. I think it was just sort of a random Gilliam gag. I know he said that a lot of audiences didn't figure out what it was. They thought he turned into a tomato or something, even though he put a giant thread and needle right next to him.
I don't know how many people didn't grow up with a mom or a family member or someone who sewed anything, because everybody has that little tomato, and it always has a little strawberry coming off of it with very different specific uses. So, I mean, when I saw this, of course it's a pincushion.
Yeah, even I knew what it was, but then my mother is a sewer as well.
Right, exactly.
And on the opposite side of the coin, we have Ralph Richardson as the Supreme Being.
The Supreme Being dresses like an old man who is going to the bank.
It's funny, my first thought was a schoolmaster. Like in one of those old British schools, he's the guy, if you're sent to the principal's office, you encounter him.
So at one point, he has Kevin sign something. What is he I can't tell if he's, because he was given a shirt or something that he dropped, it's like, was he signing a receipt that he received this item? What is this? Which brings me to the comment that in this reality, Gilliam believes that even God is full of bureaucracy.
I love that. I think, and that ties right in with Brazil.
Right,
next
exactly.
Movie.
Yeah.
I love this idea that God, who has this divine plan, you get the sense he's kind of winging it. He has no idea really what he's doing. He tests out evil. And when Kevin asks him why we must have evil, something to do with free will, I think. He can't even really put a finger on it.
The most beautiful thing acting-wise is that Ralph Richardson wanders off screen for a second and then turns around and gives us that line like he needed a beat to come up with anything, and that's the best he could do, free will.
When I was a kid, I thought either he was going to disappear or come back in some weird form or some weird special effect was going to happen. So when he just kind of wanders back into the scene after that, it was kind of a shock in a different way, yeah. And just this idea that he walks in is like, oh, what a mess. Oh, I hate that big smoky thing. It's so ostentatious, but every once in a while you have to do it, I guess.
For a being who seems to have trouble with messiness, the universe is chaos. So either he likes things neat but is really, really bad at it, or everything is still a work in progress.
I think either one would probably apply here, especially if he creates a universe that has tons of time holes all over it.
But they only had 7 days.
Yeah, it was a rush job. Apparently, Richardson was very particular about things and would fight him on every line. Like, no, God wouldn't say that. God wouldn't say that either. So
interesting.
But the performance they get in his brief scenes is really, really wonderful. When I was reading Harry Potter, he's how I pictured Dumbledore. It has that same sort of, I'm pretending to be kind of dim, but I actually know a lot about what's going on, except in this case, it feels like it's in reverse. He pretends to know everything, but he is kind of dim. But he is the nice one. Sorry, I had to.
No. I just can't believe we've been together like 7 years or so, and you have quoted that an average of once every 3 or 4 months. And I just got it that it came from Time Bandits.
And it's funny because I wasn't even conscious I was doing it. In fact, I think I've quoted the I'm not entirely dim line more often than that one.
I love you.
I love you too.
Okay.
All right.
Fine.
Great. Let's move on.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to our celebrity historical cameos. First up, Ian Holm as Napoleon. Oh, I love and miss Ian Holm. God, he was wonderful.
I know. This role was just fun. I can imagine him having been on set and just loving these lines because they're so ridiculous. He's spouting off facts, and all of those facts are about the height of these other great conquerors. He's very frivolous.
Yeah.
He seems to want that importance for importance sake rather than, I have a goal to do this for this reason. It's more like, hey, I can do this and I'm a big guy now.
Like he's a bully.
Yeah, he's trying to prove something to everyone and no one.
Yeah. And like Warner, especially at this point, Ian Holm didn't get to do comedy very much that we saw. So he's just really biting into it with that ridiculous French accent. Looks like he's having a ball with this. And apparently it was a bit of a problem for Gilliam because when they're shooting that drunken rant that he has at the table, Gilliam kept cracking up to the point where the crew had to expel him from the set so they could finally finish filming the scene. And you can see why, just the little details that Holm adds to it. The way his eyes cross when he finally does pass out. The way he stumbles over 5 foot 1 inch 3/4. It's so sad.
Yeah. But there's also a kind of theme with eyes in this film. So there are crossing eyes. And then, of course, Shelley Duvall does these things with her eyes, like fluttering, and they roll and they cross, and they're everywhere. They're just hammy eyes. And Ian Holm does the same thing. It's just an exaggeration. So this is a parody, and this is fun.
And I love there are moments where he's playing angry Napoleon, where you can almost imagine Holm playing a dramatic version of Napoleon and doing really, really well in it, too. Next is John Cleese as Robin Hood. And apparently, Cleese had this particular take he wanted to do on it. He wanted to play him as a member of royalty meeting an athletic team before a game.
Yes.
And reshaped some of the dialogue for that and told Gilliam that's how he wanted to play it. And it comes across beautifully. He's this upper-class idiot, concerned about the poor, but too privileged to actually understand what he's supposed to do or actually do anything about it.
He's pretty vacant and he wants to do good, but he doesn't understand how backward it is to redistribute wealth and punch every single poor person in the face, which is just so absurd because in a lot of ways, that's what happens. Poor people, for instance, are able to apply for government services, but then they get looked down upon and punished by society at large. So you get the redistribution of wealth and the punch in the face. And it's so funny, it hurts.
I was starting to wonder if it was some kind of comment on Margaret Thatcher's social policies, because she'd been around for a couple of years by then. Just the patronizing tone Cleese has, that laugh that he has when he asks Wally about, do you enjoy robbing? Oh, it helps pay the rent. Ah, ha, 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 ha. That really forced fake laugh. Yeah. Oh, 4'1". Ooh, that is a long time. Yeah, it's like he's answered with this non sequitur, and he treats it like he knows exactly what it means.
He's half listening. So 4'1" to him isn't a height. It isn't a unit of measurement in reality. It's a unit of measurement in time, because who cares?
I also love the detail that all of his men are disgusting and have boils and look like they have the plague or something, and they're dirty. And his outfit is spotless and clean. And his Robin Hood hat the bill is so ridiculously long. I feel like it's sort of a tryout for the Central Services caps from Brazil that Bob Hoskins and Derek O'Connor wear. Derek O'Connor also being one of Robin Hood's men in this one, the one who keeps, which is funny because apparently Derek O'Connor had dialogue and had the idea, why don't I just grunt and this guy will say everything for me?
Amazing. As the translation.
Yeah, an actor giving away lines. I also wonder if getting Cleese to play this part was a reference to, I don't know if you ever saw in Monty Python's Flying Circus, they did this whole running sketch where he plays Dennis Moore, who's this Robin Hood character who can't figure out the redistribution of wealth.
I don't think I caught that one.
The song goes, Dennis Moore, steals from the poor, gives to the rich, stupid bitch. It's pretty amazing.
Okay, now I need to see it. That's great.
And the big get for this movie, Sean Connery as King Agamemnon. Now, as opposed to a lot of the other historical figures, Agamemnon actually comes across a little better than his legend.
Really well. He comes across as kind, relatively fair.
He looks upon violence as something that has to be done every once in a while, but he doesn't seem to revel in it.
Exactly. And he is quite willing to applaud other people for a job well done. It's not going to be, yes, I have vanquished all of this. Like, no, this child saved me, therefore he will be my heir.
The only real cracks we see is that we can already see his turbulent relationship with Clytemnestra and where that's going to go.
Yeah.
And while he is this really benevolent father figure, he's also not quite what Kevin was hoping for, because Kevin wants to learn combat and wants to see him as this warrior, and he's much more interested in magic tricks, which apparently was a Sean Connery idea. And I love this idea that you can imagine Agamemnon was thinking back to Odysseus and the Trojan horse trick, and like, that's a really good trick. I like tricks like that. I'll have to learn some more of them.
Right.
This was actually the first time watching I figured out how Sean Connery did the little ball under the three chalices trick.
Care to explain?
There's one point where the chalice has the ball in it. He pulls it just past the edge of the table so the ball falls out and drops down. And then after, you can see him reach under the table to pluck it out of Kevin's ear. But it's pretty smooth.
Right.
Now, Gilliam had envisioned Connery in this part, but didn't really think he would get him. In fact, he wrote in the original screenplay, he removes his helmet to reveal Sean Connery or an actor of equal but cheaper stature.
Oh.
Luckily, the producer, Dennis O'Brien, was a golfing partner of Connery and managed to get him the script. And despite Connery's asking price being really high, he agreed to do it for less money. Gilliam suspected because it's not the kind of part that Connery was often offered.
So Gilliam got both Sean Connery and the cheaper version of Sean Connery.
In earlier drafts of the script, Agamemnon was actually supposed to appear with the Greek warriors in the finale and get killed by evil. But Connery's limited schedule prevented that from happening, which I'm very happy about, actually.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would have been okay with that as an arc.
I think that would have made the ending way too dark. Like,
Yeah.
that would have hurt more than Kevin's parents blowing up. Connery also had the idea of Agamemnon showing up in that little bit at the end. But again, Gilliam thought, well, we can't have you for that long, so we can't do it. As it turns out, though, Connery was nearby shooting Outland, and he had a day off, so they rushed him down to the set, plunked him into a fireman's outfit next to a fire truck, and got 2 shots, and then filmed the rest of the scene around him, and just cut him in, and it's seamless.
It is seamless, but it also introduced one of the wackiest parts, because when we think that he's back in reality, oh, look, it's Agamemnon being a hero, but what?
And this idea that maybe, like I said, he found a time hole and he's going to be watching out for Kevin. Maybe Kevin's not alone after all. Maybe Agamemnon's going to show up and just take him under his wing, you know? And maybe he escaped his fate, his legendary fate, being murdered by Clytemnestra's lover, and he's okay in modern-day London. I also love that last moment of him hanging out of the car and winking to Kevin. It's less like it's winking to Kevin and more like he's winking to us.
Yes.
On the fantastical side, we have Peter Vaughan and Kevin Hellman playing Mr. and Mrs. Ogre.
I love them so much.
They're adorable. And it's weird that they're these depraved creatures, but they have such a sweet, lovely marriage.
I know.
And, man, I relate to Winston the Ogre more and more every day, getting up and just like, oh, my back, oh, my knees, oh, I need the ointment.
Oh.
And that she's right there to take care of him and get him moving. It's really cute.
It is adorable.
And then they're about to eat our heroes, and it's still cute.
I know. It's like, well, I want them to eat. I love these characters, but don't eat our main characters.
It's a very Python and Gilliam-esque thing to present, here's a people-eating ogre, but he's also broken down and very fallible and relatable and very human.
And sweet and willing to try new things. A little gullible, just a little bit.
I do love that when he sees all these people in these nets floating on the deck, he's like, oh, we can eat their boots and shoes. And she's like, no, we'll eat them. He's just focused on eating boots for some reason.
Well, you could tell he really just wanted to eat the garbage out of the sea. And he's really upset about environmentalism because there's only fish to eat.
More prawn, yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't want to eat the prawn. He wants some boots.
I also love that he can't pull the net out, but she just heaves it up on deck real easily. You get the sense she's kind of the one who keeps them together and is really running things on this boat.
Aww.
Vaughan and Hellman would both return to appear in Gilliam's Brazil. Hellman would play Ida Lowry, Jonathan Pryce's mother, and Vaughan would play Mr. Helpman, his boss at the Ministry of Information.
Oh.
Vaughan would also go on to play Meister Aemon on Game of Thrones, the one who's at the wall, Castle Black.
Oh, yeah. I think you mentioned that a couple days ago.
He's also the crazy uncle in the original Death at a Funeral as well. And we also have to talk about the eternal victims of history, Vincent and Pansy, played by Michael Palin and Shelley Duvall.
Oh my gosh. So the first time we see them, I was like, okay, well, I guess that's their whole role. Bye. Because it was very short. And while it was colorful, it was just very short. But then they kept showing up. And their situation just kept getting more and more ludicrous. There's these lovers that are not able to get together the way they'd like to, because throughout history, they're getting screwed over. In a way, it reminded me a lot of Blackadder.
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of it is the bandits just literally landing on them and ruining their day for whatever reason, one way or another. I like this idea that we're seeing all these big historical figures, and these are the random people in history who get squashed by the bandits in just random circumstance. Well, now, I got to ask, what do you think the problem is that Vincent suffers
in the
Middle Ages?
So in the Middle Ages, for some reason, my brain went right to some kind of erectile dysfunction. But as the scene opened up, I don't think so. So I really don't know. Maybe a back break. I don't know.
My guess was incontinence.
That's a good one.
You have to wear the thing, and that last scream of, I must have fruit.
I must have fruit. Why? Maybe it was scurvy?
I don't know.
I don't know. And then, of course, once we're in Titanic, he has a growth on his nose and is bald.
Yeah.
And that seems to be repugnant enough for his would-be fiancée to flee.
I know.
Why?
I don't know why. Okay, now I'm imagining them trying to share a door freezing in the Atlantic after the boat goes down.
Speaking of which, when the Time Bandits are actually on the Titanic and it sinks, they are in the water and they're all gathered around this board that I had my fingers crossed it was a door. It wasn't. It was big enough to be a door. So I'm just going to headcanon that James Cameron decided, hey, they shouldn't be alive. That water's really cold. And that's how we got the Titanic scene with Rose and Jack. That's their names, right? Because I hate that movie.
Names.
Okay, good.
Yes, it is.
Freezing in the water.
A couple other notable faces in this that are going to appear in Brazil and Baron Munchausen and some of Gilliam's other productions. The game show host is Jim Broadbent, who would appear as Dr. Jaffe, the plastic surgeon in Brazil. There's also Winston Dennis, who has two roles. He plays the Minotaur, and he's also Agamemnon's chief executioner. He would play the techno samurai from Brazil and would actually get a speaking role as Albrecht, the strongman, in Baron Munchausen. And there's also Charles McEwen, who plays the theatrical director in the Italian scene in front of Napoleon, who's trying to kill himself constantly. He would play Jonathan Pryce's office mate in Brazil, and Adolphus, the sharpshooter from Baron Munchausen, as well as co-writing Brazil. The pair of hands that roll up the map at the end of the movie belong to Ray Cooper, the music producer, who would play the guy who swats the fly that causes all the problems in Brazil and would play Jonathan Pryce's lieutenant in Baron Munchausen. Huh. So again, all these connections, all these actors that he would draw from this and find roles for later on in other films. So let's talk a little bit about the cinematography for the movie. Gilliam tried to shoot this entire movie from a kid's eye level, which I think is actually really cool. It wasn't until this time I was actually really consciously looking at it in that sense, and he really does. He does. The camera angles are very low and pointed upward and making everything look a little bit more imposing.
But also, a lot of times the camera would take this canted angle on top of looking up, so the whole world looked new and weird, and you almost saw it with a child's eyes because you're looking at this scene in such a strange way. You have to really focus on what's going on.
The movie was shot by Peter Bizio, who would also shoot Pink Floyd The Wall. He'd win an Academy Award for Mississippi Burning, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, and The Truman Show. And you can see here, though this isn't Gilliam's regular cinematographer, that he's starting to edge toward the look we get in Brazil. There's a use of wide-angle lenses, not quite as many and as extreme as in that film, but in here quite a bit. And especially on the limited budget they were on, it has the effect of making the sets look a lot larger than they actually are.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when we get into the Fortress of Ultimate Darkness, there's a lot of really crazy wide-angle shots there that make those sets look towering and huge, when they probably weren't really that big. And then there's the music, the score by Mike Moran. It's pretty good. I actually haven't really heard this guy's work in anything else that I've seen. It's kind of cute and bizarre. It reminds me of some of the music from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, some of the library stuff they got there. But the real thing I want to talk about is the final song of the movie. Since George Harrison was one of the producers, the other producer, Dennis O'Brien, struggled to convince Gilliam to allow Harrison to compose a bunch of songs for the movie and put them throughout the whole thing and reinforce that Snow White comparison. And Gilliam resisted, but allowed for this one song over the end credits. And I really love this song. It's so catchy.
I have to say I don't remember it. So I'll have to listen to that. So it wasn't very catchy for me.
Listening to the lyrics, I almost feel like it sums up Gilliam's whole trilogy of imagination, a lot of the themes that run through all of his movies. The really funny thing is that Gilliam and Harrison, they got along pretty well, but they had some friction, and Gilliam became convinced that some of the lyrics were Harrison's gentlemanly way of poking fun at him and criticizing his behavior during the shoot. Specifically, hang on, the lyrics, greedy feeling, wheeling dealing, losing what you've won, see the dream come undone. Stumble you may with the elementary, lucky you got so far, all you owe is apologies.
Wow.
He thought it was really great. He thought if Harrison had a problem, this was a classy way to express it.
Wow.
A soundtrack album was never actually put together for this movie, so this song ended up being released on Harrison's Gone Tropo album later on. But it's a wonderful song. I love it. We should also talk about, there's a bunch of deleted scenes, some which were filmed, some of which weren't. First of all, there were originally 3 weird things that happened with stuff coming out of Kevin's wardrobe. The first one with the knight. There was a second one that was a little too expensive to film that would have been his room fills up with water and a longboat full of pirates comes out of the thing and starts shooting guns everywhere before they just kind of roll off into the ocean and then the water disappears.
I'm glad they didn't do that, even though it would have been visually stunning. There's something so wonderful about how quickly the movie starts. I would not have wanted to wait through another strange thing to get the Time Bandits.
Yeah, this is one case where the whole do a gag 3 times rule I don't think would have worked.
Yeah, the rule of 3, while I adore it, it's definitely rooted in fairy tale and myth and folklore, doesn't always work in film.
Among the other things that were scripted but never filmed, there was supposed to be a bank robbery in London of the future that never quite came about, and that would have kind of explained where the weird spaceship that Wally is flying in would have come from. When they were going to shoot the Supreme Being, the first time they tried to shoot it, it wasn't just this giant head. It was an actor on like a crane that was flying at them. And there's actually pictures of this in the script book for the film. It's kind of the classic God image, white robe, long hair, glowing eyes, and just this dark, shadowy face. And it's kind of creepy. I'm glad they went with what they went with because that head, while creepy as a kid, is really kind of cool looking.
The whole thing is animation, and it has such a scary look to it because of that. There's no other animation in this film. So to get that kind of different media as your godhead, it's so unnerving.
And it's weird because it's animation of photographs, kind of like the way Gilliam did his old flying circus animation with little cutouts. He found this weird actor, Edward Finn, who had this very thin face and had him recite the dialogue with a flashlight pointed up at his face and use those little animations and compose them over this big black cardboard head that was flying toward camera. And it works great. The Mycenae sequence with Agamemnon, there was originally an extra scene where he gives Kevin a knife, and you notice this knife keeps popping up throughout the rest of the movie. It's the thing that they use to open the lock on the cage, and that Wally uses to cut the rope down that they escape with. That you never really find out where this knife comes from, but you can actually see it on his belt in a couple scenes during that sequence. They just cut the scene where Agamemnon actually gave it to him. The big one is there was a whole scene filmed after they end up in the Time of Legends, right after they got off the boat, where Og gets snared by this spider web and pulled into the lair of these 2 old ladies who are spider women. They like have these elaborate gowns that have like little spider legs underneath them. And they're catching all these knights who are looking for the world's most fabulous object and have them all wrapped up in their lair. And they're like looking at the bandits like, should we eat them too? I don't know. And Kevin wants to rescue these knights and Randall is trying to get him to shut up and just eventually get out. And there's some pictures of that too, and it looks like it was a funny scene, but the problem was the next scene would have involved this weird landscape with hands pointed toward where the Fortress of Darkness was, and they didn't have enough money to film it. So they just cut that and decided to do the invisible barrier because the invisible barrier was cheap.
I like the invisible barrier because it really represents the limits you put on yourself and the idea of things being hidden in plain sight.
I also like this idea that evil is omnipresent behind some wall, watching everything at all points.
So one thing we didn't mention, there's this repeating motif of severed limbs. Napoleon's golden hand gets taken off. In the Middle Ages, there's a bunch of limbs. 2 bandits are arm wrestling, but they're not even their hands. They're somebody else's arms. Oh, no, severed arms.
I took it to be that one guy is really good and he just keeps ripping people's hands off and they're keeping them as trophies.
But still, there's severed limbs.
Yep.
And then on the ogre ship, there's a bunch of severed feet dangling.
That she seems to be grinding into powder at one point. Foot powder.
Exactly. So This idea of severed limbs kind of brings to mind for me a Frankensteinian. It's a word now. The nature of a Gilliam film is pieced together like a Frankenstein. So all these severed limbs kind of suggest things that could have been part of the plot but aren't.
See, to me, my brain goes to, by this point, Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back were both out, so it's the Star Wars losing your hand in the middle of battle motif, which comes up a bunch of times in those.
All of these severed body parts, they're funny, but I keep thinking about editing and the editing process and how, severed limbs is kind of editing of the human body. So it's the kill your darlings.
See, this almost feels like it was an ominous forewarning for Gilliam about Brazil. This is what they're going to do to your movie.
Maybe.
One thing I do want to go into is the amazing costume design of this movie by James Acheson.
Gorgeous. And it was in conjunction with another costume designer.
Hazel Pethink, I think?
Yes.
Yeah. Acheson would, besides designing some of the most amazing and iconic costumes in Doctor Who from The Deadly Assassin, he's the guy who designed the Time Lord cowl that we see throughout that series.
Oh, wow.
He'd go on to do Brazil, Highlander, The Last Emperor, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Spider-Man, Daredevil, Spider-Man 2 and 3, and Man of Steel. So he has a lot of experience in superhero stuff and historical stuff as well. And the little bits of character that his designs give the individual bandits. You have like Randall, for example, with the World War II hat and the monocle.
Yes.
Which immediately kind of pegs him as this sort of aristocrat and pugnacious figure. Wally with the pirate hat with a little monkey skull on it. I love that Strutter's jacket, it looks to be a miniaturized version of the same jacket he would put Sean Connery in Highlander as Ramirez, the little red Elizabethan-looking jacket. Fidget with his colander helmet.
Which is wonderful. Costume-wise, this is the first time I really saw Gilliam's style. As far as fashion and the look of his films go, he sort of has an eclectic look for things. I'm thinking specifically the way he uses costuming in Time Bandits and the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. They both have a very similar look where it could be a specific time period, but there's so much going on with the materials that never would have happened. So it's not purely historical. It just kind of branches into fantasy. These are items that you recognize. Like we recognize a colander, but it's a hat. And we recognize a monocle, but it's not used actually for sight.
Much as with the production design, he's obsessed with getting crazy amounts of weird little details in there that oftentimes you won't even notice, but they're all over the place. Little things like Catherine Hellman's tooth earrings that she's wearing.
Yes, I love looking for things like that. And one of the Time Bandits is wearing a medallion that has marks on it and looks like a clock. It has 12 marks around its edge, and then it has what appears to be a centerpiece with a hand pointing toward a time.
I think it was Og. Yeah, you pointed out at one point. Little details like that. And then you get to like Evil's incredible outfit with the red flowing robes and the nails. The weird headpiece was supposedly inspired by H.R. Giger and his stuff for Alien.
That makes so much sense.
Skull with the little skull hands on top, which is just gorgeous. We only really get one really good look at it in his first appearance where he shot from the back, but it's cool looking. And these weird little tubes and vents that are going out of the back of his head and all over his helmet.
That Giger-esque helmet that Evil is wearing is kind of an early look at the inner workings of the Brazil world, where it's all machinery and it's all just kind of mysterious.
It's sort of like the baby-faced demon creatures from Brazil, where you have this thing that's really scary mixed with a bit of technology and a bit of just like horror film kind of imagery all thrown in together.
Right.
So it says like technology and death and kind of this gothic look all mixed together in one shot.
And we'll see that throughout the film. We'll see pieces of Gilliam's later work. I keep going back to it, but Parnassus, its centerpiece is the stage, a traveling stage show, a Punch and Judy sort of, a vaudeville. And that's the exact stage that we get in Time Bandits.
I was reminded of the knight from Man Who Killed Don Quixote, whose shining armor is all like broken CD bits and DVD discs and stuff. Yeah.
Right. This kind of repurposing of items that you recognize, but they're something else.
Okay, a little trivia on the movie. This movie makes the third production featuring David Warner that depicts the sinking of the Titanic. So you have this, you have the British film SOS Titanic, and James Cameron's Titanic. So if you're in a movie with David Warner and there's any kind of boat, stay away. Also, this film has 2 actors who have played Jabba the Hutt. During the Robin Hood scene, one of the merry men is played by Declan Mulholland, who played the human version of Jabba that was originally going to be in the original Star Wars film. Lucas says he was going to animate Jabba over him. I think they were just going to use that scene and decide not to. But he's even wearing what looks pretty close to the same costume. Mm-hmm. And then Mike Edmonds, who plays Og, was actually the tail puppeteer for Jabba as we see him in Return of the Jedi. So
it must have been a miserable job.
He seemed pretty upbeat about it in the making of video that they show from Star Wars to Jedi. But 2 Jabba actors in there.
Wow.
So that's a little weird. The Titanic sinking footage was actually stock footage from A Night to Remember that was colorized and speeded up because they didn't really have the money to stage the sinking again. In fact, when it came to the Titanic scenes, they only had that one set, and Gilliam knew exactly how he was going to shoot it, so all they shot was that one little section that both Pansy and Vincent are on, and then the Bandits are on later on that was rigged to slide. That's it.
He did a wonderful job not making it look like one little portion. I would have thought more of it had been built, but good job.
The lighting really helped kind of sell that it's a different section of the ship and a different time, yeah. Dennis O'Brien tried to convince Gilliam to change the ending with Kevin's parents being blown up until Gilliam actually showed a preview audience of children the movie, and they loved that moment. And we also do have to mention the trailer for this movie, the original British trailer, is one of the greatest trailers ever made.
It is wonderful. I wish sometimes that we did video or weren't afraid to step on copyright issues, because it would be amazing to do our favorite trailers and be able to say, look, it's right here. This trailer is amazing. Because there's at least 2 or 3 I can think of that were just
me too.
Amazing. And some of them better than the actual movie was.
Absolutely. This one, it's all footage from the movie. No explanation of what any of it means. It's just this voiceover announcer who clearly hates his job, who's been paid to explain what the movie is to an audience and is terrible at it, being berated by this other guy who's trying to get him to stick to the script. All playing out over these bizarro shots of the film without any context.
And it's so effective because you're getting the tone of the movie while you're also seeing the images.
It's wonderful. Also, I don't know if you noticed that weird little troll thing that the giant with the ship for a hat steps on. Mm-hmm. You didn't really get a good look at it, but if it looks familiar, it actually shows up in Monty Python, The Meaning of Life during the Find the Fish sequence.
Oh.
It sneaks up behind, I think it's Graham Chapman in this weird outfit. So if you're curious to see what that troll looks like up close, just watch that scene and you'll see him. As for the legacy of the film, the movie's surprise success got Gilliam lots of attention from Hollywood, and it finally got him the financing from Brazil from Universal Pictures. And great film as that was, we know how that went for him, so...
He hasn't had much luck working with studios.
Really not.
Yeah.
I think 12 Monkeys might be the exception. That's one of the few he did for a major studio that actually was a big hit. Well, The Fisher King actually was, too.
Right.
So, all right, he had 2 bits of good luck. In 1996, Gilliam announced that he and Charles McEwan were working on a script for a sequel that would have reunited the cast save for David Rappaport and Tiny Ross, both of whom had passed on by then. The script actually would have accommodated Jack Purvis's injury, as that he would have been seated at a desk for his whole part. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, once Purvis passed away, with that many cast members gone, Gilliam just lost interest and just abandoned it. And now a TV series for the Apple Plus service is in production, executive produced by Gilliam, to be directed by Taika Waititi, which...
Oh.
Okay, great choice to direct it. I don't know if we really need a new Time Bandits because this one is so good, but if anyone is going to bring it back, he might be the guy.
Everything old is new again.
Yep.
And that's kind of how film has always been. It's not a new phenomenon. My attitude right now is that it's Apple Plus, and we don't have Apple Plus, and I don't want to get Apple Plus, but Apple Plus has been putting out things I want to see, so I'm going to sieve and not see them for now.
We'll figure something out down the road.
Someday.
Yeah. Okay, what's your favorite scene?
By far, my favorite scene is the ogre ship. In the most loving way possible. I feel like we are that couple.
I think we are, actually, yes.
Yes. just watching them reminds me of us. And I'm good with that. And it's like the only reason I love that scene is that it reminds me of our marriage.
I never thought I'd watch that scene and relate to those characters.
I
the way
know,
do
me
now.
neither.
What have I become?
An ogre.
You know what? I'm okay with that.
All right.
I can deal with that. My favorite has to be the introduction of evil, just because David Warner just gets off so many great lines and so many great line deliveries there. It never ceases to make me laugh when he blows up that guy after he asks one question too many. He's like, it's a good question. Let me answer.
It's like he's unable to control his emotions.
Or his, I would have started with lasers, 8 o'clock, day one, boom, kill somebody. Oh, sorry about that. There's just so many little great moments there. And having been such a fan of David Warner over the years and seeing him in so many other things, I wish he got to play more roles like that. He's just wonderful. Okay, your recommendation.
I spoiled it early on in the podcast, but my recommendation is Labyrinth. For the same reason I talked about it earlier, it's a movie where a child, or in her case, a young woman, goes on a magical sort of adventure that has a time constraint, and every element of her adventure is revealed in her bedroom before we get to the adventure. So we have a sneak peek into what's going to be happening, and that's exactly what we get in Kevin's room as well. And, of course, the time element.
Okay, for me, we kind of brushed on it earlier. I would have to go with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Since we're talking movies, it would have to be the film version, although I think the TV version is still my favorite version of that story. In that sense of everyman character who is whisked away into this wider, crazier world that has its own weird logic that you kind of have to bend to the will of and just sort of accept the bizarre ideas of it, basically roll with it and how little sense it makes at times. And also takes these giant cosmic ideas, the creation of the universe, the creation of the earth, gods, deities, good, evil, and brings them down to a kind of a mundane level that you can almost deal with more on a human basis.
And kind of exposes an absurdity.
And also has that same narrative structure of, and now we're going over here, and now we're going to go over here, and now we're going to zig and zag this way. And it almost seems chaotic, almost without direction, until you take the wider view and kind of see where the storyteller, Adams in that case, Gilliam in this one, is taking you. That ends our conversation, but not the discussion. If you'd like to have your say about Time Bandits or feel that we missed something, check out the comment section for this episode on CinemaSpection.com and start talking. Email your comments, complaints, questions, and suggestions to cinemaspection@gmail.com. You can also like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter at CinemaSpection. For our personal accounts, I'm at TimosaurusR.
I'm at Hagatha Luz.
We're also on Instagram under CinemaSpection. Our show is available on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher, so if you like what you hear, please subscribe. And if you have a moment, please leave us a review there. We appreciate your feedback, and your reviews help increase our visibility. We'll be back to discuss another movie next time. Until then, thanks for listening, and remember to keep watching closely. There's more to a movie than what's on the screen. I must have fruit!
I must have fruit.